Hi, welcome to CEC Level Up. Our guest today is Louis Alfieri. He has over 30 years experience in helping owners and brands lead the advancement of global location-based entertainment. He has collaborated with clients around the world, developing resorts, branded destinations, theme parks, and mixed-use destinations. He will be sharing his knowledge of the deep experimental design, brand experiences, and intellectual assets that he has created. And I'd like to now introduce you to Louis Alfieri, our guest for today.
I think I feel hopeful about what the future offers us, but I think we are seeing that there will be a period of significant concern. And these first steps that we're beginning to take with the Shanghai Disneyland opening up yesterday and other destinations opening up around the world, we're facing a moment where we need to restore confidence in the consumer, restore their understanding that location-based entertainment has historically been one of the safest industries in the world. And now we have to elevate that already important practice that we've had before with safety and health, and now take that and make that an even more significant element of what we're providing to the consumers.
You know, a lot's changed, obviously, is the way we're going to entertain people. There was recently done a survey by Synergy Blue, which is they make retro and video game systems for casinos to be put on casino floors. And in that survey, basically, they surveyed certain people in demographics, and the demographic of a casino now, or was pre-pandemic, was 60 plus, around there, that would play the slot machines and stuff. When they took their survey, they got that back, and the survey basically said that people from 29 and younger were almost 40% of the audience that said they would come back to a casino. And then between the ages of 29 to 37 or something like that, or to 40, would be the ones also. That was the other major part of percentage, all encompassing the demographic of around 51% of the people or more were all younger audiences. And that is a big change because of the pandemic. And so from that, it's like I couldn't, I don't like the fact that we have to be quarantined and the whole thing, but I don't think we could have asked for a better restart for the casino industry in claiming and working with an industry like yours to say, hey, if you want that demographic to come back, you got to talk to Louis, because he's going to give you some ideas of what you can do in your place that's going to keep those people coming back. It's the concept of entertainment, and how would you express those things and what we could do, moving post-pandemic.
Well, I think, we have an interesting change in consumer behavior that's occurring. People have been home, and these changes are affecting all industries, in terms of retail, food and beverage, the casino industry, how we're looking at the differentiation between in-home entertainment and out-of-home entertainment. And what I think is very important, particularly not only as a result of the quarantine, but what I believe is going to become evident to us in the next few months, is that there's also been a shift in consumer spending patterns, that they're going to, in some places, many people have lost their jobs. How are they going to choose to spend the dollars that they have? And the notion is that when we create an experience that elevates what they can do as a group or as individuals, that differentiates you from in-home entertainment, that you can only have as out-of-home entertainment that's worthwhile, that's worth doing, is going to drive people to make the choice with the money that they do have, to be selective in what those experiences are and why they want to choose to go to those. And I would also add to this, I think a very important factor to think about as the casinos reopen and these events begin to come back online, is that people have been very concerned. They've been staying at home. They've been scared about the outside world. When these people come back to the facility, they come back to the casino, the entertainment at the casino, what's very important to identify is that these first groups of people in the first 60 to 90 days that are coming back are people who deemed your location as truly important to their life and was missing from their life during this period of time. These people are going to come back first, are your most loyal guests that are coming back that want to be at your facility. So you need to make sure that you train the employees to engage this group, to greet them, to show your recognition and appreciation of them, as well as to also have an opportunity to kind of craft your strategy going forward, speaking with these initial guests about what they like, what they want to see in terms of confidence or other entertainment components, because these loyal guests that come first will be the most likely to give you really valuable feedback as you go forward.
So, from a perspective of a younger person, and I know many that have come that to Vegas, for example. At last CEC, one of our speakers who is a gamer herself, and she plays video games and big into esports and the whole scene. She's 29 years old. Um, this is a major demographic where there's a very big pool of people who are from the age groups that the casinos are desiring now because they need them to survive. I mean, we went from pre-pandemic to the casinos kind of just, we're okay because, our average is, 60 and older, 50 and older, and that's not a big deal. They're still coming in. We still have older guests. We don't really have to cater to the younger audiences. But now, post-pandemic, it's going to be a very, very different scene. And what you're saying is we really need to try to encourage the casinos to think outside that box. Now, I've talked about how in the late 90s and early 2000s, the casinos would knock an old building down and build a new one. How do you see, like, what types of things could be in a casino that's going to engage that audience so that they keep coming back, so that they'll tell their friends? I mean, if you can give me some examples of what you guys could put in there as some type of an immersive experience.
Certainly. Well, I think that there's an opportunity on multiple levels to look at these kinds of. I think there is opportunity for brand development, IP development, licensing, and partnering with other companies and other elements that are there. Looking in terms of at least initially on opening from a immediate standpoint, it's adopting some of the principles and practices that are in the location-based entertainment industry and creating more of a service and experiential content for the guests to, at their arriving and how they engage with the staff, would be a dramatic change that's going to kind of create word of mouth and power that doesn't create a lot of pressure. That's more of a training program and adopting principles and processes from an initial launch standpoint. In terms of the further development, it's looking at a different range of experiences in terms of environmental content, interactives, digital overlay, AR, VR, different kinds of mixed use components. Thinking about the casino as a community space that's not only gaming oriented, but that we can kind of diversify the portfolio in terms of entertainment, community engagement, and a participatory area that gives the casino multiple uses that becomes an anchor for the overall different populations that you want to bring into the space, and expands the demographic and the touch points from a complete user journey, complete customer journey from before they arrive at the facility, during their time in the facility, and after they leave.
So is it more like you see the casinos gravitating towards more of a amusement type of experience, like a Disney World for adults? I mean, it's always been called a Disney World for adults, let's say for Vegas, but I mean, now we can actually think that it might just end up being like that. More rides, more VR, more AR, more interactive, multi-social experiences with groups of people.
I don't necessarily think it would necessarily be ride oriented, but I think there will be a different range of immersive experiences that will be participatory throughout the shows, events, many special events, a lot of pop-up possibilities in terms of kind of moving content in and out of those spaces rapidly. What I think you want to avoid, at least in the near term, is large-scale capital infrastructure, building specific structures. I think there's a period of time where we want to be very inventive about reutilizing and reinventing the space that exists, repurposing it in ways that make the capital expenditure reasonable, both for the owner-operator and also in terms of making, especially if we're looking at a guest market that's got reduced funding availability, to kind of make sure that the cost of the experience is within a realm that's attainable. Now, on the other side of that, I think there's also a really powerful opportunity right now for luxury events, because that market's going to come back very powerfully, very rapidly. Looking at another tier of this that hasn't existed before, catering to a very high end, very specific type of clientele, looking for very bespoke, unique experiences that can be developed and provided as well.
Hmm. I think that's a bright future for them. I wanted to move into the other part of the post-pandemic that we didn't touch upon, which is the safety and health concerns that even younger people and anyone would be more concerned about if they're touching like another VR headset or they have to go through this. Have you set anything in place with your designs of, using, UV light or anything like that to kill germs and the coronavirus type of things?
Well, I think right now, certainly from a global perspective, I think uh, everyone's been touching on masks, gloves, different components for that. I think what we're looking at in terms of seeing how this evolves on a group basis is determining what kind of engagements there are. Electrostatic cleaning all of a sudden in the airlines has become a very popular subject. We need to see how effective that is, because this is the first time that's kind of being rolled out and a large scale facet. Uh, in terms of VR, I think it's finding a way to allow a person to access a headset and maintain it throughout their user journey, throughout the space. Typically it's been kind of a one-off, we hand it off, we wash, or a set of glasses that needs to be washed. There are changes in terms of what we're looking at design-wise, kind of an operational methodology that will allow you to have a set of glasses throughout the day instead of changing it on and off or handing it in and out at different attractions, and looking at different operational changes and design criteria changes that allow existing infrastructure to be repurposed in another way and to clean it in a specific way, or allow the guest uh, agency with a particular product to make sure that they have their own sense of self-comfort with it and their ability to manipulate it and manifest it throughout the day without a lot of touch points. And obviously, contact, no more touch screens, moving away from that, at least in the immediate period of time, and as much contactless information as possible that we can give them access to on their cell phone, for instance. What kind of new forms of engagement can we modify with those existing platforms that don't require a lot of physical contact?
Yeah. Well, I think in Vegas anyway, they're doing a lot of education now in the hospitality space. UNLV has launched a program called Blackfire. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but it's much more of the concept of, the future of the casino. But, you touched on the airlines, and it's funny, I just recently read an article about how United was supposed to keep their middle seats uh, open, and they didn't. There were a bunch of doctors that were flying back from San Francisco to New York or something, and there was a big complaint about that. But as you said, it's a methodology that you have to train your people to make sure that there's the cleanliness rules, and that they're not giving out or putting people right next to each other. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know much about virology, but I do know that if we do come up with some kind of vaccine, I think some of these rules may be a little bit more lax. What do you think on that?
I think, the reality is, as we've watched everybody on the news, we're probably 18 to 24 months away from something that's viable in terms of a vaccine. So we have to create a strategy now that allows everyone to participate and feel safe within the context of these environments that we have. So I think you can look at it from two ways. One is, obviously we have to have a strategy, and we need to train the employees and the employees are our frontline people. So we need to make sure that we value the frontline employees. We train them, we make sure that they're safe and that they're instilling confidence in the consumer that's coming into the environment. So a strong training and communication program is very important and powerful from that aspect. We also, in some ways, now have to retrain our consumer. Our messaging, our signage, our behavior in the space and in the environment needs to now train the consumer to behave to new norms than what they were customarily, aware of before. So where they may have been at a buffet, or they may have been sitting next to each other at the slot machines or at the table, we now need to kind of make them understand, not necessarily through tons of signage, maybe symbols or whatnot, just begin to achieve a new sense of what is standard protocol now in the environment, and help them adjust their behavior within that context. And I would say that the owners that rapidly adjust and evolve, keep testing new principles, new methodologies, those who can adapt most quickly will be those that are most successful at achieving success with achieving growing a new audience and bringing those people back.
So which casino properties have you guys worked with in regards to design or creation of amusements in that capacity, in your capacity?
Well, over my career, we've worked with Caesars, we've worked with Foxwoods, Mohegan Sun, and others.
So in those properties, for example, do you think something like if you go to Vegas, you'll see at the Venetian, they have the gondola ride? I mean, is this something you guys would do? Is that along the lines of how, you can design something like that, or would it be much more technically based?
Well, I think we can do both. I mean, I think for us, as a company, the gondola ride is a passive experience that you can have in the communal space. We could also, obviously along the lines of amusement oriented, like the Star Trek experience or the Forum shops, those kinds of things that you would expect that are rooted from a theme park experience. But I would also say, in terms of immersive experiences, escape rooms, different perspectives on how you can do an immersive theatrical show in the common space, how you can look at engaging, taking guests on an interactive cell phone journey from an AR perspective throughout the space, on those kinds of overlays that customize and create a unique user experience in the overall environment. I think people always look at location-based entertainment primarily in the lens of a theme park. But when you think about it, it's anything that's out of home entertainment, whether that's a special event and esport. So when we think about esports, the ability to create this kind of whole immersive experience that's in the venue can be throughout the entire facility, extending that overall special event, touring events, pop-up events, museums, zoos, sporting events. Location-based entertainment is a very wide category that essentially captures everything that's out of home that we participate in, as well as branding and IP development.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple things we can do. There's ideas that, run the gamut from everything to, walking the strip or going down to Fremont Street and holding up your phone and seeing where Bugsy Siegel stood, and how, going back in history, doing some type of AR history thing that's an overall city landscape for the city of Atlantic City. But there's so much integration. There's so many ideas that can be worked upon and designed. That's what I was trying to say before, is that we need to have people like you, designers like you are the new architects that have to start building the spaces, the interactive spaces. So we're not talking about physical domains anymore. Not talking about
limitless.
Yeah, limitless concepts of what what can be. And it's very difficult, I got to say. How do you convince the older guys that run these casinos? Some of them have been around since the late '60s. How do you? I mean, they're mesmerized. But the thing is, that type of attack, that type of interactive, immersive experiences is the norm amongst younger people. So how do we get the owners of the casinos to understand? Well, if you really want these younger people, this is kind of like what you have to do.
Well, I mean, I think we have an opportunity. Necessity is the mother of invention. We're faced with a situation now where many of the previous business models are going to have to adapt and change. And we have the ability to look at other experiences that have been provided and built around the world. We do probably 80% of our work in the last 10 years has been in Southeast Asia, which has been very progressive in terms of trying different things. Looking at what we've done there, looking at projects that are there, and looking at these changes and how we can look at a different business model that will benefit their overall business. The owners, no matter what their perspective is, they're very interested in their bottom line. So when we can sit down and talk about how the business model works, what the demographics are, and what their return on investment is, is important, and good design understands the economic realities of what you have to do to deliver the project. And you should be able to identify what the business model is, what your feasibility for this experience is or experiences are, and how to articulate what the design is and how that's going to work from a business perspective to ensure that their investment makes sense.
Well, let's start with this. We know that the younger demographic is going to be the one that they have to attract. We know that prior to the pandemic that the casino market was actually making more on their amenities, hotel stays, food and beverage than they were on their gambling. So the question in the pitch is, you want them to stay longer, you got to entertain them more.
Correct.
And that's where, and I think that's where we have to move that needle, and that's where they have to understand that if you're not going to do that, then you're really going to lose your market share.
Correct.
The question is, they don't have that ability to, but every single casino can have a different theme, and it could be, like you said, you move them in, you move it out. They can have a new theme every month.
Correct. And there's many opportunities to look at how you craft that business model. And there's also opportunities collaboratively between the owners, in terms of, obviously they're all competing with each other, but you also have to understand that they all ultimately, they benefit from each other's success in terms of how they balance these offerings. In Las Vegas, as an example, how do they balance these offerings, what they're doing to increase or, balance their market share, and the ability to kind of share costs or development costs. There may be a period here where there's some more progressive thinking in terms of business model, how they may share costs to facilitate certain experiences or IP licenses to be done in crafting an experience that can move around the strip and have different content on it that may allow them a vehicle where they all get a piece of the action, a revenue share, but all gives them some benefit to draw people back to the location.
And maybe even a snippet of that entertainment that people can experience at home, but not get the full immersive experience.
Correct.
Lots of ideas, lots of things to do. You guys are going to be quite busy.
I think, I'm really hopeful about what the future offers us. I mean, I think we're in a challenging time, but I think it gives us an opportunity to look ahead and kind of retool old business models, look at new ways to implement design and new ways to engage people that there have been barriers to exploring before that now I think we can certainly push the innovation envelope.
Well, I think, a lot of positives are going to happen from the pandemic. And one of those positives happened to be that we've been forced into the future quicker, I think, than they actually were comfortable in getting there.
Agreed.
And, where I see it is that at the Casino Esport Conference, we're going to have guys like you speaking. One of our main speakers will be Ted Silowitz from Paramount Pictures, who's their futurist, and all in line with that concept of immersive experiences and, really bringing in that younger audience. So I wanted to just thank you for your short time here.
Thank you.
We had a little bit of technical difficulties. We worked that out, but it happens. Anyway, thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting you in person. Hopefully, please.
And likewise.
In September, where we can design and create, and you can get questions from the audience, and hopefully we are thinking of something like for those who can't make it from overseas, if there's still some type of thing, we're thinking of some virtual reality experience where they can still be a part of the event, but we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you there and
All
everybody
right.
else.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye.